know that most of what you've seen, read, or heard about Billy the Kid is untrue? My name is Gale Cooper. I'm a medical doctor and forensic psychiatrist. My specialty is murder case consultation for the defense. For 20 years, I've used my expertise to uncover the real Billy the Kid. Researching over 40,000 pages of archival documents and books, I've written the revisionist history. It's shocking, it's liberating, and I've written books demolishing the hoaxes, hijacking the history. My talks will share with you what I've found. Cover-ups, misinformation, and fakery, to use Old West lingo, will bite the dust. On June 8, 1878, when he was 18, Billy Bonney's words were first recorded as his deposition to attorney Frank Warner Angel. Angel had been sent by President Rutherford B. Hayes to New Mexico Territory to investigate corrupt Santa Fe ring politician's murder of Billy's boss, British merchant rancher John Henry Tunstall, that February. Angel questioned Billy about his witnessing Tunstall's murder by ring-beholden Lincoln County Sheriff William Brady's deputies and posse. Billy risked his life by coming to Lincoln to meet with Angel. Just 69 days earlier, westward on Lincoln's single street, Billy and his fellow regulators had killed in ambush Brady and his deputy to prevent their imminent murder of their anti-ring leader, attorney Alexander McSween. A transcriptionist recorded Billy's answers to Angel's questions. In Billy's reading of his deposition, his repetitive legalese will be eliminated, like using that said at sentence's start and naming a person after a pronoun, like he, Matthews. And he will speak in first person instead of the transcriptionist's writing, deponent said. To be noted is that Billy hid his grief and trauma at losing Tunstall. Note also Billy's articulate and meticulous memories and presentation. They characterized his future statements against the ring.
I gave my name as William H. Bonney, was duly sworn, and said that I am a resident of Lincoln County. That on the 11th day of February A.D. 1878, I, in company with Robert A. Wiedemann and Fred T. Waite, went to the ranch of J. H. Tunstall on the Rio Feliz. That I and Waite at the time intended to go to the Rio Peñasco to take up a ranch for the purpose of farming.
Note that Billy slipped in his proudest achievement at the start. During his just 4.5-month employment before his murder, Tunstall had given him and half-Chickasaw Fred Waite that ranch under the Homestead Act. Since being a foreigner, Tunstall couldn't use that act himself. Tunstall, in league with his men, could that way control the grazing land with ranches along the Filas and Peñasco rivers all the way to the Pecos River. There they would join cattle king John Chisholm, Tunstall's ally, and appointed by him as president of the bank Tunstall had founded in his Lincoln store. Tunstall was murdered by the ring because he was defeating Santa Fe ring boss Thomas Benton Catron's Lincoln County monopoly of cattle ranching and mercantile contracts being carried out by Lincoln sub-bosses running a big store nicknamed The House, meaning Lawrence Murphy and James Dolan, operating as J.J. Dolan and Company. Billy also tried to explain to Angel that Tunstall and attorney Alexander McSween were not business partners. This lie was part of the ring's malicious prosecution of both men. The ring used Sheriff Brady to harass Tunstall by attaching, meaning inventorying, his property at his store and ranches. That was for the ring's bigger lie, that McSween had embezzled life insurance policy money from a dead partner of the house. McSween's trial was set for that April's grand jury in Lincoln. If Tunstall was McSween's partner, Tunstall, as well as McSween, would have to pay back the money if the jury convicted McSween of embezzling. This harassment of both men was intended to provoke violence, to justify murdering Tunstall in claimed self-defense. But Tunstall refused violence. He said that the life of one man was worth more than all he owned. Ardent teenaged Billy Bonney ended up transformed into a freedom fighter by martyred Tunstall's goodness.
That the cattle on the ranch of J.H. Tunstall were, throughout the county of Lincoln, known to be the property of Tunstall. That on the 13th of February A.D. 1878, one J.B. Matthews, claiming to be deputy sheriff, came to the ranch of J.H. Tunstall, in company with Jesse Evans, Frank Baker, Tom Hill, and Frank Rivers, known outlaws who had been confined to the Lincoln County Jail and had succeeded in making their escape. John Hurley, George Hinman, Buckshot Roberts, and an Indian, a.k.a. Ponciano, a known murderer.
Note that Billy emphasizes that Brady's deputy, J.B. Matthews, was with outlaw Jesse Evans and his boys. They were the intended hitmen. Brady later lied by denying that they were part of his posse.
Before the arrival of J.B. Matthews and his posse, having been informed that they were going to round up all the cattle and drive them off and kill the persons at the ranch cut portholes into the walls of the house and filled sacks with earth, so that they, should they be attacked or their murder attempted, could defend themselves. This course being thought necessary, as the sheriff's posse was composed of murderers, outlaws, and desperate characters, none of whom had any interest at stake in the county, nor being residents of Lincoln County. Matthews, when within about 50 yards of the house, was called to stop and advance alone and state his business. Matthews, after arriving at the ranch, said that he had come to attach the cattle and property of A.A. McSween. Matthews was informed that A.A. McSween had no cattle or property there, but that if he had, he could take it. Matthews said that he thought some of the cattle belonging to R.M. Brewer, whose cattle were also at the ranch of J.H. Tunstall, belonged to A.A. McSween. Matthews was told by Brewer that he could round up the cattle and that he would help him. Matthews said that he would go back to Lincoln to get new instructions, and if he came back to the ranch, he would come back with one man. Matthews and his posse were then invited by R.M. Brewer to come to the house to get something to eat.
Note that Billy described Deputy Matthews' attempt to incite violence and the pacifist response of Tunstall's foreman, Dick Brewer.
Robert A. Wiedemann told R.M. Brewer and the others at the ranch that he was going to arrest Frank Baker, Jesse Evans, and Tom Hill, having warrants for them. Wiedemann was told by Brewer that the arrest could not be made, because if it was made, all the persons at the ranch would be murdered by J.J. Dolan and company and their party. Jesse Evans advanced upon Wiedemann, swinging his gun and catching it cocked and pointed directly at Wiedemann. Frank Baker stood near Wiedemann, swinging his pistol on his finger, catching it full cocked pointed at Wiedemann. I heard Matthews ask Wiedemann whether any resistance would be offered if he returned to take the cattle, to which Wiedemann answered that no resistance would be offered if the cattle were left at the ranch, but if an attempt was made to drive the cattle to the Indian Agency and kill them for beef, as Matthews had been heard to say would be done, he would do all in his power to prevent this. The persons at the ranch were R.M. Brewer, John Middleton, G. Gauss, M. Martz, R.A. Wiedemann, Henry Brown, F.T. Waite, William McCloskey, and me.
Note that by G. Gauss, Billy meant Gottfried Gauss, Tunstall's cook. Gauss ended up seeing Sheriff Brady's murder posse arrive. Gauss knew the ring's evils. That's why he helped Billy break jail in Lincoln on April 28, 1881, by leaving him a pistol in the jail's outhouse.
J.B. Matthews, after eating, started for Lincoln with John Hurley and Ponciano, the rest of the party or posse saying they were going to the Rio Peñasco.
Note that there at Paul's ranch, Brady was assembling his big posse to attack Tunstall.
I started to Lincoln with Robert A. Wiedemann and F.T. Waite, and arrived at Lincoln the same evening. And I left Lincoln on the next day, February the 14th, in company with the above-named persons, having heard that Matthews was going back to the ranch with a large party of men to take the cattle. I and Wiedemann and Waite arrived at the ranch the same day. On the night of the 17th of February A.D. 1878, J.H. Tunstall arrived at the ranch and informed all the persons there that reliable information had reached him that J.B. Matthews was gathering a large party of outlaws and desperados as a posse, and that posse was coming to the ranch, the Mexicans in the party to gather up the cattle and the balance of the party to kill the persons at the ranch. It was thereupon decided that all persons at the ranch, excepting G. Gauss, were to leave, and William McCloskey was that night sent to the Rio Peñasco to inform the posse who were camped there that they could come over and round up the cattle, count them, and leave a man there to take care of them, and that Mr. Tunstall would also leave a man there to help round up and count the cattle and help to take care of them. I left the ranch in company with J.H. Tunstall, R.A. Wiedemann, R.M. Brewer, John Middleton, and F.T. Waite. Tunstall, Wiedemann, Brewer, Middleton, and me drove the loose horses, Waite driving the wagon. Waite took the road for Lincoln with the wagon, the rest of the party taking the trail with the horses. All the horses which I and party were driving, excepting 3, had been released by Sheriff Brady at Lincoln, that one of these 3 horses belonged to R.M. Brewer, and another was traded by Brewer to Wiedemann for one of the released horses.
Note that Billy makes clear to Angel that the horses were being moved legally, since Brady had released them from being attached. Billy then presented the murder scenario.
When I and the party had traveled to within about 3 miles from the Rio Ruidoso, I and John Middleton were in drag in the rear of the balance of the party, and just upon reaching the brow of a hill, we saw a large party of men coming towards us from the rear at full speed, and Middleton and I once rode forward to inform the balance of the party of the fact. I had not more than barely reached Brewer and Wiedemann when the attacking party cleared the brow of the hill and commenced firing at me, Wiedemann, and Brewer. I, Wiedemann, and Brewer rode over a hill towards another which was covered with large rocks and trees, in order to defend ourselves and make a stand. But the attacking party, undoubtedly seeing Tunstall, left off pursuing me and the 2 with me, and turned back to the cañon in which the trail was. Shortly afterwards, we heard 2 or 3 separate and distinct shots, and the remark was then made by Middleton that they must have killed Tunstall. I then made the rest of my way to Lincoln in company with Robert A. Wiedemann, Brewer, Waite, and Middleton, stopping on the Rio Ruidoso in order to get men to look for the body of J.H. Tunstall. Neither I or any of the party fired off either rifle or pistol, and neither I or the parties with me fired a shot.
Note that Billy emphasized no shooting by Tunstall's men. The posse couldn't claim self-defense to justify Tunstall's murder. Billy signed as William H. Bonney, the alias he had created in late 1877, and used in the remaining 3 years, 1 month, and 7 days of his life, before the ring succeeded in killing him too. Note also that investigator Angel collected profuse evidence, in addition to Billy's, that John Tunstall was murdered by U.S. officials, but, likely coerced by the ring-biased Hayes administration, Angel hid this in his report and lied that Tunstall was murdered by the Jesse Evans outlaw gang, which had a grudge against him, and not by U.S. officials. Billy gave this deposition just 36 days before the Lincoln County war battle began in Lincoln. The victimized citizens took a stand against the ring themselves. Tunstall was their martyr. Billy became their hero.